went live.
There we go.
There we go. Hola, amigos. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this K6 office hours where you may be wondering, where's Nicole? Who is this? Who are these, plural,
That's right.
weird mustache guys talking about? And is this office hours? Is mustache office hours? So, um, welcome,
That's right.
everybody, where we are going to be bringing so much knowledge, so much information around today Kubernetes. Um, First of all, as some introductions, I mean, Leandro Melendez, your good old friend, amigo, señor Performo. I'm going to be playing host today, and I am going to be slamming our now guest, because the last time it was backwards. You were slamming me with questions. So we have our friend, amigo Paul Balogh, um, Go expert master of the universe with extensions and super awesome amigo. How are you doing, amigo?
Good, good. Thanks. Yeah, no, boy, way to talk me up. Now I'm a little nervous. I thought here now we were just going to talk about our mustaches all session.
Oh,
You know,
wow, we will need too many sessions for that then.
yeah. The ins and outs of particular mustache wax, and how to train the mustache appropriately.
Episode 24. Now, the conditioner that you have to wear on this and the night procedures and no, but let's try to keep it short and about these cool extensions and Kubernetes, this weird thing that is floating over there in the horizon and the ether. But before we get going, we have a few announcements that we want to give to everyone. As you may have noticed, Nicole is not with us. She's super busy right now and doing what was the conference that she was participating at?
um,
Can't
oh, I don't
remember
know.
the
I just
name.
know that she's in Madrid.
In
She's
Madrid,
in
yeah.
Spain right now.
Awesome QA
España.
conference in Madrid, Spain. And well, long story short, she's really busy right now. So she gave us the show to mess up, which we're already doing very well, for what I can tell. And given that we will be having also so much movement and preparations for GrafanaCon, well, office hours will have to be postponed for the next two sessions, right, Paul?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So probably we will be playing reruns on those 2 days, or no, just kidding. I mean, we won't be able to do the show. You can get whatever reruns you want on our YouTube channel, where all the office hours are stored for you to binge watch whatever and how much ever you want.
Yeah. So I think the 24th will be the next office hours.
Yeah. So we will see you in about 3 weeks. Most probably you will see Nicole as well, because as you know, we will be on one hand preparing for GrafanaCon, and then GrafanaCon will be happening. Whoever is interested, wants to join, or have not registered yet, it's completely free. So what are you waiting for? I mean, just after the show is on the office hours, right? And yeah, it's free. Lots of great sessions. We're going to have lots of good conversations, presentations, and everything you want to know about Grafana and about K6. Where here, your amigo Paul and Nicole as well, that's why they are not going to be around, are going to be presenting. Paul, what are you going to be presenting?
Oh yeah, so yeah, the title and will be on Friday, roughly about the same time as office hours, so it'll be perfect. But yeah, it'll be Grafana K6 testing without limits. So it'll be all about extensions. So we got to have that that tagline there to really pull people in. Testing without limits.
Awesome. Yeah, and I mean it's a critical point and component, those good old extensions, which actually is what we are going to be talking about today.
Yes.
And so GrafanaCon coming soon. Don't miss it. Subscribe, free, no mula, no dinero, gratis. So go for it, please. And as well, some other announcements. I wouldn't be covering well enough for Nicole if I didn't do this. we are hiring at K6.
What?
We have lots of positions. Before we get into the interesting, just we're hiring. If you're an awesome performance engineer, you like K6 development, and many other positions that we have, take a look at what we are offering. I know very well from recent interaction. We are looking for some people that are awesome at performance testing and that can provide services, remote work, all that. So let us know if you may be interested. Take a look. There are lots of interesting opportunities. Okay. We don't have any other thing that I can think of. I think we're good. Right. So let's get rolling with today's topic. We're going to be talking a lot about this Kubernetes thing, Kubernetes, or however you want. I have heard like 5 different variations on how to pronounce it, right?
Oh, yeah. I've heard people say Kubernetes and, so you can just say cube. But that usually is short and sweet and to the point.
Yeah. Or K80s.
Kates.
Like,
Kates. A lot of people will say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I mean, multiple names, multiple definitions. But amigo Paul, as I said, and usually I try to play dumb here on some of the situations, but sadly, I'm for real gonna be dumb this episode because I have not had the opportunity to play as much as I would like to with Kubernetes, or to be exposed to it, or to be sure 100% of what it is. So, amigo Paul, what is Kubernetes? What's the deal with that thing?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you asked. Now, Kubernetes is, it's one of those. It's a powerful tool that it's, the official thing. Probably the official description is that it's a container orchestration management system. So that sounds real lofty and everything, but no, it's really cool. It's essentially, I always think of it as being the system administrator that never sleeps. It's the thing that's going to make sure that your applications are up and running. I get distracted.
It's so
there.
much. So, sorry. Some people are saying hi in the chats, and I didn't want to interrupt you. Sorry for that, big banner. Hello, everybody.
I'm having a little bit of a compressed view here on this screen that I've got. So it's ensuring that the number of instances that you want running are continually running, and then what it's going to do is it'll go and it'll as they say, it'll treat these services as cattle, not pets, which is a horrible description, but it's getting repeated. I have been having a little bit of messages saying that my Wi-Fi connection is not the greatest. So hopefully nothing's going on there. So it'll keep your containers, your applications deployed as containers up and running, and things like it'll monitor so that if an application tries to overuse CPU or memory, that it'll immediately be killed off and replaced with a new instance in its place. So that's where the whole cattle thing is like, don't treat these like in the old days, we had these virtual machines or servers where, we cared for them. We always applied updates and things like that and kept that same instance going. Well, in Kubernetes land and with containers, we can just say, okay, just get rid of the old one and then replace it with something new. It's kind of an immutability thing is how they kind of describe it a lot of times, where you don't really change it. It's created and then you leave it. And then if you need an update, you just get rid of that one and you replace it with a new updated version. So you don't modify things in process. So that's
it sounds a little like that description of cattle is not like a pet. Don't
exactly
get attached to it.
Yep.
Just put it down, eat it. Next one.
Exactly. Yeah, you're not going to care and maintain that instance of the pod running all the time. It's you're just going to go ahead and just replace it. And that's one of the big things about it. But yeah, so Kubernetes will take care of that. It'll manage that, and then it'll also ensure that again, that there's fair scheduling is one of the terms that they call it, so that as you have multiple instances of a service, so you would have, I don't know, say if you had WordPress, you would have it running on 5 different instances. And then as traffic is coming in, requests are coming into that WordPress instance, Kubernetes will say, okay, instance 1, you get a request. Now instance 2, 3, 4, it'll keep doing that round robin. So it'll make sure that no one single instance is getting all of the work. So it's that's the fair scheduling aspect of it.
And so some of the terms that you mentioned, pods. I mean,
Yeah.
makes me think of Apple products, but what's a pod?
Yeah, so the pod is the atomic unit of Kubernetes. So that's your deployment. Now, a pod can actually be comprised of multiple containers. So, and again, with containers, this is just like with Docker. It's a container. It's not an actual VM or anything like that. So it's pretty lightweight. And these pods are what get deployed throughout the Kubernetes cluster. Kind of like whales. You'll notice that Kubernetes has a nautical theme. So the logo for Kubernetes is the the helm, I guess, or the steering wheel essentially for a boat. And then Docker uses the whale as its logo, and then pods are therefore groups of whales in
and
English.
then a container is as well this thing that you have in ports and docks and
and on the ships, and
that's very interesting. Not the sea stuff themed part, but I truly didn't know that you could have multiple containers in a single pod.
Yeah, and that's just one of the resource types actually in Kubernetes. I mean, but that's for applications when you deploy them. That's typically going to be your atomic unit that's running. There's other things that are resources, as they call them, as that are like cron jobs. There's replica sets, which controls how many instances of each service you want. Services. Secrets, all of these things are different resources within Kubernetes.
Got it. And you mentioned a moment ago, like running jobs from pods or cron jobs. What is the difference?
Well, so a job is just anything that's going to be run and then it'll go away, or it'll be executed once and then you can keep it around, or else it can just have it poof go away. And then cron job is just a specific job that's based on a scheduler. So you can say that, okay, on at the top of the hour, every hour on Wednesdays, run this particular job. That type of a thing. You can have that fine-grained scheduling.
And so one is kind of at machine level, your regular machine job, and the other ones are inside of the pod. Like you just bring the pod to do that thing and get rid of it, right?
Yeah, I mean the job is kind of like the definition, and then it'll create a pod that will actually run, and that's where the execution is.
Object and class implementation, more or less like that, right?
That is one way to think about a lot of these things. Is that you have your definition, and and then the instance is actually
once you instantiate it's alive and you did the thing on the plan and blah. Cool.
Exactly.
Very, very cool. And so when you mentioned that Kubernetes can control these pods, does it control as well? You said multiple containers inside of a pod. Does Kubernetes manages that? Like, say, I want like 5 containers inside of one, or just one, or more pods, or
I mean, whatever's going to be inside the single pod, that's going to be based off of your definition. Because again, Kubernetes is they call it declarative, meaning that you're going to have a configuration file, which is kind of think of it as a template for how you want your application to be deployed. You put that into Kubernetes, and Kubernetes will do everything that it needs to make that become the actual state. So in your template, you would say, okay, I'm going to create a pod that's going to have, my application, and then maybe some sort of a supporting container as well. A lot of times people do, say, like if your software has an agent that needs to report things out, like I use a lot of times the as an example, Linkerd, which is a cloud native. It's a service mesh, they say. But what happens is you have your applications in Kubernetes, and then Linkerd will inject an extra container into each of your pods. And what that container does is it's a proxy, so that it's intercepting all traffic coming into or out of that pod. And in that way, then you can instrument all that activity. And then what they do is they have it then report, what's going in and out of that pod. They report off to their own control panel, or, control plane, which is the Linkerd control plane. So it's, yeah. So, I mean, there's
it sounds like you can
lots
go
of things.
all sorts of crazy and mixes and do lots of things. It's
yes.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, there's even things that we're doing with injecting, like with some of our chaos proof of concept type things. We can inject a container into a running pod and say, okay, what this container is going to do is it's just going to sit there basically in an infinite loop. So it's going to run this this pod out of memory or CPU, where we're going to force Kubernetes to say, you're not supposed to do that. You're gone. It's going to bounce it.
So it controls a little bit the what's alive, what's not, and can induce chaos. It's now that you say it, it's very straightforward. And you mentioned as well that it could act some sort like a load balancer.
Yes, you can set up. There's they call it an ingress, but there's also services. Ingress makes it where you can expose your service to the outside world. Otherwise, everything else is running strictly in Kubernetes, and only services within Kubernetes can access each other. There's a whole thing about security that within Kubernetes. So, but these ingresses and services, they will act as a load balancer. So just like with AWS, you have those. I think they're ALBs, the application load balancers. Very similar in Kubernetes. It just provides that functionality.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's like it detecting what instances, what does it have, and how does it have to distribute. Is it always round robin, or you can make it like weird configurations?
Yeah, well, there is some different things that you can do, so that like you can. It takes some work, but you can do some tricky things where you say, like in the case of a rollout of a new version of an application, you say, okay, I only want I want to do like a canary test. So you're only putting a very small number of requests to that new version just to make sure that everything's okay. And then as you feel a little bit more comfortable, you start, modifying those routing rules essentially to say that, hey, I'm going to deliver more traffic to that new version until finally you say, okay, all traffic is to the new version. Now I can get rid of the old. So there's a lot of different tricks that you can do with Kubernetes. So there's a lot of different things.
That's really cool, because it sounds like you can use it also like you can have two different pods at the same time and be sending to these 90% of the load, and here's your canary, blue, green, whatever you want to call it, and be doing also some quality. That's super awesome. And when you mentioned that it can detect and control how many more to push or what to do, I mean, it can take those decisions, Kubernetes, like, oh, this pod is like running out of memory, bring another one.
Yeah. And actually in the demo, we can go through that scenario, but
I'm spoiling it. Sorry.
Yeah, but it's from the your declaration, again, you're going to tell Kubernetes, okay, what are the limits? You, as the application author or the SRE, you're going to tell Kubernetes, okay, kill it if CPU reaches maybe 80% for the pod, or if it gets to this whatever level of memory. You're going to have to tell Kubernetes that information. Otherwise, it's just going to keep trying to keep it running. It'll let it use all the memory that it can until it causes a problem. And then there's a failure, and then it'll replace it. So it's again, it's that declarative. It's not doing magic. It's doing what you tell it to do. Whether
I mean,
by
some of those
default
things
settings or,
almost sound like magic to me. I mean, it sounds pretty
yeah.
cool and interesting. And you mentioned that it looks for some hardware and resources to take some of those decisions.
Yes.
Can,
Yeah,
can
I
you
mean,
mention a few hardware metrics or things that it looks for to take those decisions?
as far as like killing a pod, it's going to do things. It's typically only going to be based off of CPU or the memory. But they do also have things like horizontal pod scaling, where let's say that because it's all about resources, right? You want to run the lowest number of instances that you can get away with to meet your current system's needs. So, an application, we say, okay, yeah, let's have just 2 instances of it. But then all of a sudden now you start getting a lot more traffic coming in. Maybe you launched a sale or something, and then right at 8 a.m. and then everybody starts jumping on the website. Well, as that's increasing, the requests coming in, you can tell Kubernetes, okay, I want to be able to spin up to 10 instances, and it'll automatically do that. So if you get a big jump in load, then Kubernetes will say, okay, I'm going to create more to meet the demand. And then once that subsides, then it'll start getting rid of pods. So that way, then it says, okay, yeah, I'm going to go back down to 2 or as close to 2 instances as I can, just to keep the cost as low as possible, really. Because you figure
And
Mhm.
go on.
Oh, no, I was just going to say every pod running is costing money.
Hmm. You mentioned a moment ago that growing horizontally and adding more instances, is that the same as more pods? I mean,
Yes, that's
okay.
exactly what it is. It's increasing the number of pods it's scaling horizontally.
And playing vertically, does Kubernetes has those capabilities, like add more resources to each pod, or?
They are actually working on that, because obviously, vertical scaling is saying, oh, okay, that's the equivalent of saying, oh, okay, I want to add memory to this machine, or to the pod. They actually, I had heard, I don't think it's available yet, but they were looking to do that. So, normally in your definition, you say this is how much memory I'm going to allow, and then up to this maximum, I'm going to request this amount, but I'm going to say you can grow it to this, and then it just kind of will take that. But they are doing some vertical scaling where you can increase that on demand, so it's kind of interesting.
It's interesting to know and to keep in mind. I mean, I didn't know that distinction, that Kubernetes can control horizontally, add
Yes.
more instances, but not grow the instances. So
Yeah, exactly.
interesting things to check. Because yeah, I'm guessing if it can grow the instances, those scripts that you tell it, like once you get to this consumption, bring another one or do that, can get tricky or interesting.
Yeah. But that's its big, that's the big plus of it too, is that it can do that scaling for you.
Hmm.
But you have to
And
define the parameters that it's going to trigger the scaling.
yeah, and here I'm connecting it, and I'm starting to understand part of what we're gonna talk today about the extension that plays with Kubernetes. So does it deal with some of those functions, or how does it play? Where does it play the XK6 Kubernetes extension?
Yeah, so the XK6, so all right, normally before XK6 Kubernetes, there's kubectl. Kubectl is the actual binary command, and that's what you would normally use to interact with the Kubernetes cluster. So, which is fine, it's just a command line tool, and then that way, then you can do things like do your deployments or kill objects or whatever. So what we do is with the XK6 Kubernetes is we basically kind of wrap that command line client tool into the K6 script so that load test or someone writing a test script can then use that kubectl command essentially from their JavaScript. So we don't provide everything that kubectl can do, but we are adding features.
So this is really cool because I'm guessing, I mean, from what you described before, you had to manually go and start a pod and then run your script after you're done with the script, bring down the pod or...
Correct. Yeah, or do whatever. If you're provisioning a namespace is one of the kind of isolating firewalling things in Kubernetes. Maybe you wanted a test run where you say, okay, yeah, let's create our own namespace so that way then we're not interfering with anybody else's work. So let's create basically a fresh environment, a clean environment, and then we'll run tests against that. And then once the load tests are done, we'll tear it down. And it may not be the best for load tests, but for if you're doing things like other kinds of performance testing.
No, and I can think this is a very good use for, let's say, continuous performance, where you just bring the latest version of the code, put it on the pod from our, I don't know, the K6 script, initiate the pod, do your test, kill the pod, and be done and move on the continuous integration pipeline, right?
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And what things, I mean, for now, you mentioned that there are some functionalities that are to be added or is a work in progress. Which ones or what things, I mean, you already mentioned you can start a pod. What other things can XK6 browser, Kubernetes do?
Yeah, so it's mostly going to be CRUD operations. So, create, read, update, delete, that type of thing with the resources. So with pods, deployments, ConfigMaps, secrets, there's persistent volumes. There's a plethora of different resources in Kubernetes that we can work with. So it's primarily just those. It's those CRUD operations. There's
an interesting one to me on the read part. What things can you read out of Kubernetes with a XK6?
So, there's all the state of the pod. So, say like if you want to see some information about a pod, so you can basically do a get on that, and then you'll have all the information in there. So you can see what, I don't know, where it's deployed, or if you want to see get a count of how many of that pod name are available, how many instances. All that kind of stuff. There's a lot of metadata available on each of these resources.
So you can kind of pull, this may sound weird, kind of monitoring from how the pod is doing.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah. How long it's been running, that kind of
how's
stuff.
the RAM, how's the CPU, like the usual points of interest with performance and load test, right?
As far as those metrics, what's the current CPU utilization? I don't think the Kubernetes API has that.
Provides that? Oh, got it.
I think that would be something where like you would have to hook in Prometheus and scrape those metrics. I think that type of metric is a little too fine grained. I don't
that might
think
be inside of Kubernetes is working with it and it's
right.
for itself.
It's definitely available elsewhere, but I'm not sure if the kubectl command actually makes that available. I
Okay.
would be
So it's
interested
based
to check
mostly
that.
on the curl command and its capabilities, not the
Yeah, yeah.
full. I mean, now that I'm learning or understanding a little bit Kubernetes, I'm going to nuts with it. Oh, can you pull this? Can you do that? But and there are some other I don't know, capabilities, right? There are some other things that you can control through this XK6 K6 extension for Kubernetes. I see more capabilities, right? You can what other things can you control, or what other ideas does the K6 team
As
has
far
to do
as
with it?
the types, or
I don't know. Are there other implementations or things that K6 uses with this extension, or what other crazy things can I do with it?
yeah, I mean, again, it's really mostly that. Now we can, and this is some of the things that we're going to be adding in are to support some chaos experimentation type things. Um, we do have, it's a public repo out there, but and it's just JavaScript based, so it'll be like a JavaScript library, and then this uses the K6 Kubernetes extension to be able to do things like kill a random pod, or things like that. That's very early on, but it is a proof of concept project that is out there. But yeah, for chaos engineering.
That's super cool, because it will give you some capabilities to, on one hand, see what happens when a piece of your solution just disappears, goes down, or whatever,
Exactly.
right? Or
Yes.
I'm even thinking right now, like you are doing a load test and you have, let's say, 5 bots for something, and you say chaos, let's limit it. Let's put only 2 and
Yeah.
see where the bottlenecks start to appear, or get creative and get some
Yes.
chaos analysis out of that, right?
Yeah, because I mean, the big thing that we're pushing for is that K6 not being just a load testing tool. It's actually a reliability testing tool. There's you
Oh
can
yeah.
use K6 for contract testing. You can use it for, obviously, the chaos testing, as we're kind of talking about, and load testing, of course, and as well as the end-to-end, the browser automation testing. So I mean, there's it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, we're really trying to promote K6 as being a kind of a one of those tools that's not just for load testing. So this is
Hmm.
where this will help out quite a bit.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of this. I mean, video games, like you have this weapon and you just take off the cartridge, and now it's a nice weapon, and yeah, I can do some other things, uh, multi different bullet or something
Yes,
like that.
yes,
And
yes. It's a utility belt.
uh-huh, of capabilities or things that you can do, or tests that you
Yeah.
can trigger or do. And there's also this. It makes me think: can the Kubernetes extension initiate more K6 instances?
Now that's where we get into, that's the K6 operator. So
Mm.
with the K6 operator, now it's not an extension, but this is a means where you can actually go and deploy this operator, or it's a custom resource, into Kubernetes. So it acts as an application that you deploy into Kubernetes, and then it allows you to actually run distributed tests. So you can actually
Mm.
have multiple pods of K6 running a single test and sharing the activities. So it's what you get out of like the K6 Cloud, the software as a service version, where you can actually have multiple machines, or in this case containers, running the same coordinated test.
I think I saw a little bit of those explanations and some of those integrations with Kubernetes. The amigo Henrik Rext, let me see
Yes.
if I have the address somewhere here, because it
Yeah,
was
he
a
just
very
released
good.
that yesterday.
Yeah, amigo Henrik, is it observable? Look at his channel. He explains a lot of things, but he really did a deep dive on K6 capabilities, getting with the orchestrators, and it's and this capability to play with Kubernetes, start these things, pods, gives a lot of opportunities, right? To kill them, to bring them up, and in the pod you
Definitely.
can have other things. It sounds to me like then there's a little bit more communication. If you are orchestrating through the Kubernetes, you're extracting information from inside of the pods, right?
Yes.
Of what is running, how is your test doing, and your. This sounds weird. It's like Inception, right? Dreams inside of dreams. You have K6 running a pod inside running K6, and then
Yeah,
killing
yeah.
it and pulling the information.
What is it? It's turtles all the way down.
Well, it's not slowing down. It's yeah. I mean, it sounds ridiculous. You could have something and more K6 inside of other K6 running. No, that's too much. No. But this is really awesome, and this now that I understand it a little bit better, gives a lot of possibilities and opportunities, as you were saying. This extension that you can do also towards chaos, towards, because here, as an example, the blast radio that you can do is not only a single, I am gonna kill a pod. I could even like increase, like kill the pod for the load balancer, kill the pod for the database service. What happens when these
Yes.
two and do all sorts of mixes while at the same time you're generating load, right?
Exactly. I mean, because that's one of the things. I mean, with with the code base, it's in the code. It's kind of called circuit breaking, but it's one of those things where we can say we could use chaos to say, okay, get rid of let's cut the database connection. Now what is your application doing when it can't communicate with the database? Well, really, you should be like what having an internal cache of the old data. So is it better to say give stale data returned back to the user instead of, a failure? So there's that kind of stuff that you can answer with this. So
And even like I can think of some other integrations. Like you could have an XK6 browser on the other side. Is the screen still showing? Is it just like
exactly.
this? The page is already displaying, but there's like a text box that you cannot look at. It's waiting for the
Right.
database, but you already can play with the rest. So
Right.
gives a
Exactly.
lots of capabilities, lots of
Yeah.
possibilities,
Yeah. And
and
that's where it's cool with the all the XK6 the extensions that you can compose with them. So you can bring in multiple things. So you can mix XK6 browser and incorporate tests browser based while you're sitting there using, killing things off in Kubernetes behind the scenes to see what's happening in the browser.
And going even crazier, you can also have a script that is hitting the database directly. There's an SQL extension, if I can remember,
Exactly. Yes.
and see what happens with that script when the database is or losing pods
Exactly.
or totally gone.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. What
that
happens
that.
when you drop a table in the middle of some requests? So,
Yeah. No, no,
yeah, you
that
can
that
go
that.
crazy with things.
No, and with the pod, sounds like it's super safe to do some sort of those crazy things like, oops, drop the database. What happens?
Exactly. Exactly. And that's where, yeah, if you would use the Kubernetes extension to go and provision, everything in your own namespace, that way then you're isolated. You're not hurting anyone else. Now, obviously, if you're using a shared database, that's a different
Oh,
thing.
beware.
You don't want to mess with that. But, again, you can use Kubernetes to actually deploy your database into Kubernetes itself and have it totally isolated. You just have to seed the database, and you could use XK6 SQL to seed the database if you like, if it's not already baked in your image.
That's super awesome. Now, all the
Yeah.
combinations, possible mixes that you can do, and uh,
Right.
um, I can already think of some evil tests. Not evil, I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
cool tests. Let's call them cool tests, but
Yeah. Exactly.
cannot
Yeah.
stop like a little bit like. It's silly, but it's super exciting, and I mean, can we see it? Do you have anything that we could like show it off, or
Absolutely. And yes,
you
and
came
actually,
prepared? Oh wow, you
yes,
even have it there.
I
Groovy.
did. Yes, yeah. So you got it there. And then if anybody wants to follow along, I did create a GitHub gist, which
Mm-hmm.
has, my kind of instructions as well as the JavaScript that I'll be using. So there we go. But yeah, so and hopefully this is large enough where folks can read this. But we'll kind of walk through a bunch of the things. So I'm using some open source tooling to run Kubernetes locally on my own machine, in Docker, using Docker. So I use this K3D project. So what we'll go ahead and do is,
What is
and that's
K3D? Sorry.
K3D is so what it is there's another project called K3S. It's like they make it
There are
all
lots of
kind of
K something.
confusing.
What is going
Yeah,
on?
yeah. But K3S is something from Rancher Labs, but it's a Kubernetes implementation.
Oh,
So
okay.
because Kubernetes is kind of one of those things where it's like saying Linux. There
It's
is
more
a
like a standard, and you
implementation.
can put the flavors, and
Yeah, I
everyone has
mean,
their own.
they do have the main implementation, but then others, they also provide the standard. And then so you have AWS, they've created oh boy, I can't even remember, AKS, or
Okay.
yeah, I think it's AKS. That's their implementation of Kubernetes API. And then GKE is in Google land. So there's the Google Kubernetes engine.
Oh, cool.
So
So everyone has their own
K3S.
flavor.
Exactly. And then they adhere to the same specification. Well, now Rancher Labs had created K3S, which is a very stripped down version. So, Kubernetes is typically run on, massive machines and then that are really powerhouses. Well, K3S came along to have like a very small binary that can do the same thing that, could run on things like Raspberry Pis.
Oh,
So yeah, I mean, one of the little experiments that I want to do that I haven't gotten around to yet is that create a cluster of Kubernetes on 5 little Raspberry Pis and have my own little Kubernetes cluster. And each
oh,
one would be running
wow.
K3S, and they communicate with each other, so they're a coordinated cluster. Well, K3D now uses the K3S version and then puts it into Docker. So I can actually have a multi-node Kubernetes instance running within Docker on my local machine.
Wait. So you
So
have a container administrator inside of a container?
absolutely, it's turtles all the way down. See, that's
Oh,
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll let people go through this at their own leisure, but here I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy this command here. So this is actually for K3D, and then this is going to start up a cluster, a Kubernetes cluster with 3 different agents. So it's going to have 3 extra servers, workers as they call them. So once this
What are
finishes
these workers
starting,
for?
they're just Kubernetes, worker nodes. I mean, in a real Kubernetes environment, these would be separate servers probably. But
Are they
Kubernetes
are
will
they
have
are they
like
like a pod, or
no,
a
these are at a
container?
higher level. These are in nodes. So pods are the
Uh,
lowest level really for jobs and things like that. But nodes are the higher level. Think of those as that would be a physical machine or a virtual machine,
got it.
large thing. And then the main controller for Kubernetes will say, okay, this node you're going to do these jobs. This node's going to do these jobs. So it can be fairly complicated. So right now at this point, I do actually have now a Kubernetes cluster running. So I do have kubectl installed locally, so I can do kubectl get nodes. And then here we'll see that there's 4 running. So one is the control plane. So it's the I guess the controller for the overall cluster. And then there's 3 workers. So these can accept pods, and because it's, again, Kubernetes tries to distribute things fairly. So that way then it scales up in parallel. So that way then no one server is doing the majority of the work. So it tries to distribute things evenly. So this guy's up and running, okay? And then now there's another tool that I make mention that, it's obviously this is an optional thing, but this is one that I love using called K9S. And what it is it's a console-based user interface for Kubernetes. So here, if we look at this, these are all different pods that are running on my cluster. And these are just the system pods. So these are internal to Kubernetes, this deployment. But here I'll go to namespaces. Okay, and then we'll see that here I've got kind of a clean thing. There's these Kubernetes namespaces. And again, that's how it isolates and protects things within Kubernetes. So I'm going to come in here, and then now let me go ahead and, let me open up another terminal, and I need to build my XK6. Oops, sorry. There we go. All right, so here I'm going to install XK6. Now that goes extremely fast because I already have it. So, but going through the steps. And then now I'm going to go ahead and build my K6 based on version 0.38.3, which is the latest.
Most
and
recent
then include
version.
Yes, and include those the K6 Kubernetes extension. So right now, and again, of course, you do have to have a Go development environment in order to be able to do the build. So now I do have a K6 binary that has been extended to include the Kubernetes functionality. So now I'm ready to go ahead and start playing with this, the JavaScript.
Okay.
So here I've got, and again, this is in the gist as well. So here I'm doing my normal import. I'm doing a import of the Kubernetes object from XK6. So there. So that means that I can simply instantiate the client. And here I'm going to create this K6 testing namespace. So if we look here, let's see. Oh, that's right. I want to be on K9S. We'll see that does not exist yet. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just go ahead and run this script. Again, I'm doing the ./K6 because this is a different binary than what may already be on my path. So this is the freshly run one. And then let's see, I think I did. Yeah, Kate's Playground. Oh, all right.
Uh-oh.
No, this is actually expected. I forgot what I did, but I didn't do one extra step. So what happened here is we look at the output. I did now create the namespace in Kubernetes, and then I actually created a deployment and a service. So now, if you recall earlier, I kind of talked about services and ingresses. And well, ingresses are required to make your service exposed or available to the outside world. Well, I didn't create that with my script. So we just come in here. So we'll see. There's that. See, it's failing there. So
yeah, because giving that kind of control by default from the outside is kind of not very safe.
Right, exactly. So I do have a command here on how we can expose this. So if I just pop in here, and again, that's in the comments of the script, but just need to update my namespace. So we said this is K6. Didn't want to insert in the right spot for me.
It's the joy and excitement and drama of live demos.
Exactly. Yeah. So here's something where I'm having to use the kubectl command and this port forward. So this is just making it so that there's going to be a proxy that's bound to 63367 port that's going to go to the internal Kubernetes port of port 80. Okay. So I'm going to run that, and then it's running. So now if we go through here and go back to the browser and refresh, this is what I deployed into Kubernetes. So this is actually, what I deployed. So if we look at this, and again, remember that everything is declarative in Kubernetes. So we talk with everything is in YAML. So this is the guy that I'm deploying or I did deploy this HTTP bin. Okay. And then I passed in a variable to say how many, replicas, how many pods I want for this deployment. And then this is just all the additional things to say that, okay, this is the source image for that application. It's going to deploy it there, and I'm going to have it exposed on port 80. So kind of verbose there, but in my script, in my setup is where I was doing it. I was checking to see if the namespace exists. If it doesn't, then I create it. And this is the syntax to create the namespace. So this is actually using kubectl underneath the covers and then creating. And then here again, similarly, I did with the deployment names. I check to see if it exists. And if it doesn't, then I will create it. And that's where I was echoing it out. And so here I'm saying create it with 3 pods. And I echoed out the information here about executing that command line. Okay, so now I can go ahead and run this. It'll be safe to run this script again.
Let's see it.
So if I do this time, oops, boom. We go through and it's actually going to be accessing. We notice here's the connections because I had 10 VUs set up. So it was actually communicating there and going through that proxy. Now here, this is just something, this is the thresholds failed. The test was really kind of successful. It's just that in my test script, whoops, I had, this threshold here, rate of 10. So what's going on was it was just reaching 9.8 requests per second. So if I go ahead and reduce my sleep, so here I'm accessing this. So if I just reduce this to 0.9, hit that and run it again, it'll probably be all happy. And it was just that matter of the weight in there. It just couldn't reach the 10 per second that was required. So yeah.
So it's a little bit what you were describing earlier to have those controls of or how much throughput or how much to go over to the what would be the pod.
Yeah. So and now if we look in here, so I was showing you this K9S. So now we can see that K6 testing is there. So that's what my script had created. And then now I look here, and these are the 3 different pods. So we could even drill down into that further and get into the logs. And you know what? I'm not sure if this thing even logs anything. Here, let's just HTTP bin probably just doesn't even, because this pod would have gotten some activity. So it just doesn't log anything. I guess I should have picked a more fun container to deploy, but but yeah, it's I mean, I guess actually, oh, what the heck? Let's try this.
Let's do that. Let's do some more time.
Yeah, let's do some crazy stuff here. So now I'm gonna say we'll check for that, and then we're gonna change this source so that we're gonna do HTTP. Oops, sorry, I mean Nginx. We'll deploy that. Here, I'm just going to change these names. And watch, hopefully this won't just blow up in my face. So let's see. The service.
And if it does, it already looks like a very interesting experiment right away. No, I mean, you're drifting directions on what you're trying to do kind of live and experiment new things with what you're trying to test. I see. I mean, even if it doesn't go as planned, looking at the plan is a very interesting example of what type of things you can do.
All right. So let's see. Let's try this now. Okay. So now what this should do is it should create three here they are. Yep. So I've got the 3 instances of Nginx now
See it
creating.
behind,
So yeah. There we go. So that's up and running almost. And there we go. All right. We at least have one running. Okay. So now, let's see, where did I have that port forward? Go ahead and go in here, pop in there. Okay, look, logs. All right, so this is the actual Nginx log. So let's see. I'm going to need to kill my port forward. Let's see, cube. All right. So let me try this port forward again. Okay. So we're doing that. Nginx and the namespace. All right. So now, if we go ahead and refresh here, we should get the Nginx default page. There we go. Welcome to Nginx.
Yay!
Woohoo!
Successful demo and crazy experiment.
Yes. All right, so we got that. So now I'm going to go ahead and run the script so that, let's see. All right, let me find a blank terminal here. Okay. All right, so now I can do the /K6 run, and then it was Kate's Playground. Okay, and hopefully we'll see some activity here. I don't think I need to do anything to refresh. Let's see, try 0 tail. All right. Well, I guess not.
Oh.
But yeah, so, and just I wanted to explain on here too. So remember how we said that we deployed it in there and we said, okay, we always want 3 instances of this service. So what I can do is I can come in here and notice that it's running. I'm going to go ahead and delete this. Now I could do this in the script as well. But if you'll notice that, boom, this one's terminating immediately. A new container was creating to replace it. So this is some of the stuff that you can do with your chaos experimentation. You can use the K6 Kubernetes plugin or extension rather to go and say, okay, yes, delete this pod.
I mean, somewhat what you just did manually, you can do it from the chaos extension with another instance.
Exactly.
Do all this type of crazy. I mean, not so crazy. There are very good experiments. Like the possibilities, the capabilities is where I'm. Very excited. I mean, and the connectivity, and don't want even mention the outputs that you may be able to get out of these things and connect them and consolidate. And it's a great tool. The type of things, and on top of all the amazing things that you have been explaining and showing to us, what surprised me is how quickly could you start to, hey, let's try this, boom, 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 and even in a few minutes or even seconds, you were kind of getting new things with the help of the extension, with I mean, all the K9 and visualizations. It's a very good set of capabilities that Kubernetes and K6 can connect. Do you know of any, what's coming up next on next K6
Yeah, so
Kubernetes?
I mean, so a lot of things are being driven right now from the point of the chaos experimentation that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some other things like how I had to sit there and I had to kind of hack and do directly that kube control the port forward. That's something that will be we do have an open issue for that. That's something I need to finally get around to actually working on. Um, but yeah, so that's one of the things up and coming. We don't have a real like a roadmap, unfortunately, where everybody can see. But we're definitely open and welcoming of opening issues and pull requests, even too. If folks see something that they'd like to add or contribute, definitely bring it in.
Because
But yeah,
it is an extension that is somewhat new, right? It's adding up and starting to be built up, and it'll
yes,
be based on requirements. I mean, what is more
exactly.
important? What is, please come and ask for it. I mean, I'm
Yes.
sure the dev team will be super happy to get your requests in K6. They might be screaming at me right now, but no, please do. Please do, because some of these functions, I mean, as much as you say this is somewhat basic, somewhat like starting, I
Exactly.
love it. I mean,
Yeah.
it already does lots of awesome things. So this is awesome, man.
Yep.
And being mindful of the time, I don't want to hold everyone for too long on a Friday. Paul, some final words, some final comments about this awesome functionality. I mean, set of functionalities.
Yeah, no, I mean, just the only thing is that, yeah, if you think of anything that you want to add to it, because again, it's very small in scope as far as the things that you can control right now. They're going to expand, but it's one of those things where it's like you know, work on priorities. So whoever's the squeakiest wheel, I guess, is maybe going to get the attention first. So right now, chaos is squeaking. So.
Oh yeah,
But please do, yeah, feel free to reach out.
yeah. Get to the repository for XK6 Kubernetes. Start playing with it. Check what you want to do. The chaos one as well. I mean, it's being built up as well. And your Christmas letter for Santa Claus developer, something. Let's see what we can do. And take a look at it. It's awesome. It's a very good tool. Now I can't wait to start playing with this Kuber something K80s or um, some containers and have some fun with it.
Yes,
Oh,
and actually,
okay.
KubeCon is coming up too. So, and
When is it? Do you know?
that is in October in
Okay.
beautiful downtown Detroit, in the U.S. So, we'll be. I'm planning on being there. So,
And with all the excitement that you are getting on me for this cube or something thing, I think I'm gonna be there. I need to learn a little bit more of this stuff. It's gonna be very entertaining and amazing to learn, understand the capabilities, how much can we do, and what else can be implemented with K6.
yes.
So with that, my perspective, I mean, I already kind of ended up super excited and bedazzled with all these capabilities. And I'm sure that the rest of the people watching and whoever watches the recording, all the reruns of our XK6 uh, extensions will be happy to experiment with it. With that, I close a little bit. Beware, again, we won't be having an office hours next week, neither the following one, because we have GrafanaCon happening on those dates. We have to prepare first for GrafanaCon, and then the Amigo Paul will be presenting together with Nicole at GrafanaCon. Don't miss it. Subscribe. It's free. It's super awesome. Lots of talks, lots of knowledge, together with an awesome talk on K6 awesomeness from Paul and Nicole. Okay, with that, Amigo Paul, have a wonderful weekend. I hope that the excitement and preparations for GrafanaCon flow and go well. Everyone
Thank you.
watching, have a great weekend. And amigo Paul, take care.
All righty. Bye-bye, everyone. See you soon.
Adios, everyone. And we're going out. And out. Why did I